friends, it's Kinsey here at the Flocking Farm. Today we're going to be covering a heavy topic, the degradation of mothers in the home, the social pressures that are facing young women today, my anecdotal experience having come from a business background moving into motherhood. Lots to cover, so let's get into it.
Hey, I'm Kinsey. I'm a crazy homesteader with a lot of ambitions. I like to talk a lot, and I'm a little goofy, but I'm passionate about intentional living, and I love my family. This is our story at the Flocking Farm.
Why am I making this video? I was someone who struggled with the idea of making that transition from being a businesswoman into being a mother. There were a lot of social pressures that I had to navigate through, and those are what we're going to be talking about today. It is my opinion that the large majority of our culture now is putting an emphasis on success means being a businesswoman, a boss lady, an entrepreneur, a strong, independent woman who don't need no man. The general conversation towards moms in the home is that they're just moms. Or that, well, I can be a businesswoman and a mom, and I would like to help reverse that narrative to I can be a mom and a businesswoman. A little bit of my backstory. I am a nerd when it comes to all things typology. My mother is a certified MBTI personality profiler. I also study the Enneagram. A lot of that might just sound like nonsense that doesn't mean anything to you, but if you know anything about the Enneagram, when I tell you I'm an Enneagram 3 Wing 2, which nickname is the Achiever, that should help you kind of understand the lens, the paradigm, the starting point of which I'm coming to you with. I put a lot of emphasis on myself as a human being as needing to be useful. I don't feel valuable as a person unless I'm contributing to society. I place a lot of external emphasis on what people think about me and what society or the general culture around me's paradigm for success is. And this is something that I had to spend a lot of time really redefining for myself as I decided purposefully to shift my season from businesswoman into mother. Now, I'm not saying that these two things can't coincide. If we see the Proverbs 31 woman of valor, she's running business, she's clothing her household in scarlet. I believe that there are aspects of this that can beautifully commingle together, but I think the problem is our emphasis and our focus is on women being boss babes instead of being amazing moms. Moms are not given their weight in society like they should. I heard it once said that men run the world and women raise it, and I don't entirely agree with that sentiment, but there's a lot of it that I do agree with, and we're not putting nearly enough importance on we are literally the ones raising the world. What an opportunity. What a blessing that is. Now, I had some hesitations going into motherhood because, like I said, I come from a business background and I was doing fairly well in business. Before we had our daughter, I had run a dog training company. I was a dog trainer that specialized in nervous, fearful, anxious rehabilitation with dogs, as well as puppy training and basic obedience. My first year in business, I pulled a profit, which I think is pretty cool. I retired that when COVID hit, and then I moved into sales. And not to toot my own horn, but I freaking killed it at sales. I had so much fun because I believed in my product and what it could really do for people. I'm a teacher by nature. I love to teach, and learning how to deal with objections and building a vision for people and then having that turn into my own profit was something that I thought was mutually beneficial, was so extremely fun and fulfilling for me. I say all of that to tell you it all pales in comparison to what it's like to be a mom. Pales. Being a mother is the most fulfilling career I have ever had. I did have hesitations moving into this because it's not a job you can quit. If you start sales and you don't like it, you can quit. You can't quit motherhood. So I put a heavy amount of pressure on the responsibility, the weight that is being a parent. The weight is one of the things that makes it so meaningful. I'm of the opinion you cannot truly grow up, and I heard this from Jordan Peterson, you cannot truly grow up until you have someone wholeheartedly outside of yourself that is more important than you. That's what happens when you become a parent. You know, you have aspects of that with a spouse, but realistically, to have your heart on the outside embodied in another person who, without even a second thought, you would give your life for, there is a different kind of love that is experienced that cannot be articulated in the human language when it comes to being a parent. I remember the day that we had her and I held her on my chest. The first thing that came to my mind was, this is what they want to rob women of. You can find enjoyment and purpose and fulfillment in career. But sitting on the other side of having experienced that, let me tell you, there is nothing like being a mom. I also think that people are disheartened by the idea that they have to have it all figured out at once. What I want to help give young women permission to lean into is this idea of chapters. I had a chapter where I was a behavioral dog trainer. I had a chapter where I was a saleswoman. Right now, the chapter that I'm in is motherhood. This is my new season. And I have heard from so many women, some of the years they look back on most fondly are when they had little kids. And it's such a short season if you think about it. I am of the opinion you can have a career, you can have the homestead, you can bake the sourdough bread, you could go and give a TED Talk, you can have kids, you can do it all. Just maybe not necessarily all in the same season. I think that leaning into this idea of different chapters of our lives can help give us the feeling of freedom to not have to have it all figured out all at once. If you think about it, I'm having kids while I'm still relatively young. I just turned 25 this last year. I know I'm a quarter of a century now, but we're already expecting baby number 2. By the time I'm 50, most of my kids are going to be pretty much old enough to take care of themselves, which means I've only hit halftime. I have another entire lifespan to live, that I could build a career, that I could travel the world, that I could do other things with my family. But what's the alternative? I don't have a family, and then as I get later and later and later in years, who am I supposed to share that with? You know, I have my spouse, but there's something to be said about you go through your motherhood chapter, and then eventually you get into your grandmother chapter, which is what my mom is experiencing now. Having someone to share that with, having a legacy that you can build, having that larger family structure. Let me tell you, I have met several older women that don't have that. And I hear it in their voices when they talk to me, and they're like, well, yeah, I never had kids. And there's almost a sorrow there of not having someone to pass on everything that they've built to. Having someone to share that part of their life with, to carry that on. And I think we're going to have more and more and more and more of that as women are convinced that being a mom is somehow a burden. It's certainly a sacrifice. I won't sit here and tell you it's not a sacrifice. It absolutely is, but in the best ways possible. And like I said, as someone who's experienced a career, as someone who's experienced being a businesswoman, I can tell you that is part of my DNA. There is a part of Kinsey's fabric woven into her being that is an entrepreneur, that enjoys business, that enjoys sales. That doesn't go away when you become a mom. But this idea of leaning into our different seasons, into our different chapters, I am here in this motherhood season with little kids. Well, a little kid, soon to be little kids. I don't want to miss it. I don't want to miss it. And even when people are having children, I feel like the message is that they are a burden. Predominantly, our culture does not have a positive view on children. We can see this all the way to the start where babies are expendable in the womb. And in fact, they're not only expendable, we are actively as a culture encouraging issues like abortion. Children are disposable. Our society has deemed them as a burden and as disposable. And I'm here to tell you there's no greater adventure that I have ever had than in being a mom and being a parent. And I am just at the very beginning of that. I want to be really, really present in this season because I know in the grand scheme of things, it's so short. It is so short. And as wonderful as having a whole bunch of different aspirations and dreams can be, I just want to be that voice to tell you it's okay if you aspire to be a mom. And not only is it okay, I think it is the most worthy pursuit that you could have. Again, I'll go back to saying we look through the lens of, I can be a businesswoman and a mom. And I'm here to say, I really think that we would be happier and more fulfilled, because happiness is a silly goal. But I really feel like we could be of more service and fulfillment if we put the reverence and awe that is justly due to moms who are raising our world. They're like, if you think about it, that is the most important job. You are raising the next generation. That's not something to be taken lightly. I know that hearing this conversation is something that I definitely could have benefited from at that stage as well. So it is my hope to be an encouragement to you if you are a young woman and you're considering it, just to know that they're lying to you. It doesn't all have to be it doesn't have to be a burden. It can be an incredible, fulfilling experience if you just allow yourself to be immersed in that season. Those are my hot takes. Thank you so much for spending some time with me here today. I know you could have been anywhere and you chose to spend some time with me. I really appreciate it. For more on important conversations, you can check out the playlist. I'm actively adding to it. Last one that we did was on should you get married young and some of the pros and cons that I see in that decision. More on motherhood in general, I would recommend checking out this video over here. And as always, until we meet again, don't be afraid to live out loud. And we will catch you on that flippity flop.